the only qualified or established profession is a counsellor. Counselor. Only they have their own act ensures how many practices they should take before they become a licensed, a chartered counsellor. Generally, if you have a master's in any psychology field, you will have the authority to name yourself as a psychologist. There's a difference between calling yourself a psychologist and according to international standards. Even though there's this Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychologists, we have our own memberships and we have our own clinical training to become a clinical psychologist, but it's not officially recognized yet. Working here as a clinical psychologist in Pusat Psychology and Rehabilitasi Atfal Jannah, we receive many patients which are categorized as children. Most of them are autism, ADHD, dyslexia, intellectual disability, or in other words, the old word is mental retardation. I don't think there is a written ethics in dealing with children in Malaysia, but we follow the rules and ethics from APA, American Psychological Association. First is informed consent. So even though we are dealing with a child, we must tell them what we are going to do. We're going to do an assessment, we're going to do an interview, and as long as they are below 16 years old, we must have the consent of their parents. It's best to record a verbal agreement between the child with their consent, of course. Just in case anything happens, maybe the court wants the proof. Other ethical guidelines: respect the child's view, even though he or she may be a child. We believe that the child, by default, is not lying. So we must respect the child's view, consistent with other information. But what the child does and says in the interview, all are recorded as assessment for assistance of diagnosis. A child is unique in his or her own way. Some children are very hyperactive, so there are certain conditions in which we have to grab the child and then only we can only talk to them. Sometimes we have to be strict. At the same time, we want to try our best to get into their world. What they play, we play. Conducting an interview with a child is never easy. You don't get what you want in just 1 or 2 sessions. You must build a very good rapport with the child before you can get into the real topic. So maybe the first, second, the third sessions are all just play. Just to get into the world of the child and just to get the trust. But the more sessions you have to take, the more the parents have to pay. So you have to build trust with the parents. Even though we understand it's a process, it's a long process, you have to build rapport with the child. But how do you communicate with the parents? How do you make sure the parents understand that they have to pay because we are in the process of building a rapport with the child? So that's an issue. How do you balance between what you have to do and what the parents have to pay? Some parents might just think, we're not going to pay 2-3 sessions just for you to play with our child. We want, after every session,
you want to see improvement.
Yes, the parents want to see improvement, and the parents want to know what did you do with our child. But there's privacy and confidentiality. It's a big issue.
Even though they're the parents?
Even though they're the parents, we can't just tell them anything. Sometimes, if the child does not give you permission to give this information to your parents, but your parents have the right to know. So how do you do that? Usually because the rules is, of course, children under 16, children under 18, the parents have the right to know. But the child also has the right, as an individual, of their rights, of their privacy and confidentiality. So I don't just tell anything to the parents, no. I really respect the child's view the child's privacy. Because if you tell everything to the parents, then the child will not have trust to us anymore.
Yeah.
And the trust will be broken in the next sessions. Why would I tell you anything if you're going to tell my parents?
Yeah.
You're just the mediator between me and my parents. So if you want to tell that to the parents, then you have to ask the permission from the child. Unless it's something that is violent or the court orders us to tell, then we tell. But as long as you can keep it abstract, don't tell it directly, but it's vaguely, just give hints. I think that would be the techniques a psychologist has to master in balancing between ethical issues between what the parent wants to know and what the child wants to hide. 16-year-old child, she is adopted by this lady. She has certain manipulative behavior, cheating, lying, stealing things. Even though from the people that she loves, she steals watches, money. Okay, the tricky thing is the adopting mother is a lawyer, so she knows her rights, and she wants me to interview the child. And she asked whether I could record a session between the interview between me and the child. She wants to hear it. So I said I can't do that. I have to ask the permission of the child. And as a lawyer, she said I have the right to listen because the child is below 18 years old. So I said I will record it, but after the session, if the child does not give permission to let you hear it, then I will not give it to you. So after some discussion, and then we reached that agreement, and then she agreed. Even though if you give it to the mother, it won't breach any legal guidelines because the mother has the right to know. But how do you convey this message to the mother so that the mother can also understand that the child has her own rights? So sometimes you have to defend who you need to defend. You have to know what's right at the right time. And for you to make a decision, you have to be very wise and you have to weigh out the pros and cons. And then you make the decision and you try to negotiate with the parents so that they can also understand. So when that happens, and when there's a mutual agreement, then there's no issue lah, basically.